Hello, good morning, everyone. This is Tibetan Buddhist Society of Canberra, and I'm doing the series of talks on life of the Buddha, which we did twice, 2 sessions before. So I'm continuing this today, and we won't be able to do a meditation because I have a retreat on this weekend. But I'm doing this as a pre-recorded, so all of you can watch this on Facebook and YouTube. But next week, I should be able to, I will continue the same series of talk next week onwards on Zoom as well as on Facebook and YouTube. So sorry that there was a little bit of a gap that I wasn't able to do, but so today is still part of the Sakadawa Vaisakh month, and so it's very good to know a little story about life of Buddha each time we do listening. So last week the last session we finished talking about Buddha taking some grass from swastika, kusha grass, and then making a seat under the fig tree, which he just realized is the actual place one can gain enlightenment, as that was the diamond seat, Vajra Asana of all the past Buddhas. So therefore he made a vow to go there after finishing his 6 years of ascetic meditation and so on. So there was very little time that is left before he was going to be enlightened. While this was all happening, the Maras, the evil Maras, who were jealous, who didn't want the Buddha to become enlightened, and they came to interfere and his meditation by telling him that why you are looking so weak and impoverished like this when your hometown has been, your cousin Devadatta has usurped the Kapilavastu kingdom, and he has seized the palace, and he has crushed all his families, beaten them, and why you stay here? And also the Mara caused many apparition of how Buddha's wife Yashodhara and other members of the family were all escaping because of the fear of the invasion by basically Devadatta. Of course, these were all lies. This wasn't happening. But whatever the Mara did to shaken the Buddha in meditation, Buddha's meditation was progressing very much. And when the Mara used all the various agitating or disturbing, he also used violence to attack the Buddha by hurling stones and rocks and and shooting many flaming, spears and arrows. All the weapons that was hurled towards the Buddha turned into holy flowers and very beautiful blossoms, and Mara couldn't do anything. Mara, having reasoned this, he said it's impossible for him to do anything to this. Maybe he said there is another way that he can distract the meditation of Siddhartha. And then he called his 3 daughters, his 3 beautiful daughters, Arati, Rati, and Trishna. These are the 3 daughters, all named after allurements, and captivating Buddha from his meditation as if they were going to be successful. Oh, by the way, they were very beautiful, three sisters, and they all danced and came to try to seduce, to distract the Buddha from his meditation. But the Buddha, through his power of meditation, his radiance of kindness, actually turned all those beautiful young girls into old hags with gray hairs and wrinkled and so on. So all the evil designs of the Mara was unsuccessful to distract or affect the meditation of the Bodhisattva. And so this is rather regarded as what we call conquest of the Maras. Conquest of the Maras means Buddha, just prior to his attaining enlightenment, the night before he attained enlightenment, he conquered the Mara in this way. As a result of this spectacle, all the gods from the pure abodes, showered with many holy flowers, and the songs of victory was hummed and resonated in this space. While this was happening, of course, the Bodhisattva was in deep meditation, being able to witness the 12 links of interdependent origination, and so he was able to reach a very high level of realization. When all the wisdom start bursting into him, the Mara and his bow and arrow, that whatever he tried to do, instead of causing any damage, even his weapons augmented the beauty of the whole holy flowers and so on. While this was happening, rumor has spread in Kapilavastu saying Buddha was, because this is also the Mara telling the people in Kapilavastu, saying that the prince is now died. He died of starvation and weakness, and he didn't succeed to gain enlightenment, and so that our whole family become plunged into already very depressed and despair because of this news. And Yashodhara and other family members all really fainted by hearing such a disturbing news, and so they were all depressed. And then but then they also heard very soon, no, all this news is wrong, it's false. It's exactly opposite. The Prince Siddhartha has actually attained enlightenment. And that very night, Yashodhara gave birth to her son, Rahula. Because that night was a lunar eclipse as well, lunar eclipse. And according to Indian mythology or religious belief, that eclipse is caused by a planetary god called Rahul. So because it was a kind of full lunar eclipse night of the full moon, then she named her son with the eclipse, Rahula. On the same night, Buddha's uncle, Amirtodana's wife, has given birth to, and so of course they were very sad for one moment, but then they were very happy that they gave birth to a son. So they gave him the name Ananda, meaning all joyful. So while this was happening, birth of Rahula and birth of Ananda, as well as enlightenment of Buddha, all happened same time. But on the one hand, King Shuddhodana, Buddha's father, was suspicious of his daughter-in-law. How come, she claims that the child that she's given birth to, she thinks still is my grandchild. When her husband left 6 years ago, this can't be right. So that caused much distress to young Yashodhara. Yashodhara had already enough suffering and pain, and mother's distress was so bad, and she just felt that she got to do something. So she invited everybody in together, and she sweared, and she took the child, Rahula, and she put the child threw the child in a pond. and by swearing that if the child be the son of the Prince Siddhartha, the Bodhisattva, may it and the child, may the child, float back and come back to my lap. If it is not, may it sink. Because this is, I can't stand this kind of accusation. And so, thankfully, the child floated and go round the pond a few rounds, and then without sinking even an inch, then came back like a piece of cotton, dry and then when people saw this, they couldn't believe. This is not only the true son of the prince, but also the son and father are very special. And then, of course, everybody celebrated, and Yashodhara was so delighted that she could prove all the accusation wrong, and this happened. So what we're talking about is Buddha's enlightenment, who happened in Bodh Gaya, and in Kapilavastu, which is about a couple of 100 kilometers in the northwest, and there was this happening. So there was birth of two boys, Ananda and so on. And so at that time, when this was all happening, then some gods came before on Kapilavastu town, and they offered food to the Buddha, and they also praised the Buddha's enlightenment, and they spoke 3 verses in praise of the Buddha. So it goes as follows. All the pleasures, the worldly joys, all those which are known among gods, compared with the joy of ending existence, are not as its 16th part. So which is saying that the witnessing the enlightenment of the Siddhartha's joy, is so precious that not even 16th part of the joy that the world gods and world has in entire existence cannot compare. Even the 16th part of the joy of enlightenment can be matched. Sorry is he whose burden is heavy, and happy he who has cast it down. When once he has cast off his burden, he will seek to be burdened no more. So the gods are actually acknowledging the great burden of samsara. Those who are not able to cast off the burden, of course, is very sad, and they will still be lost. They will still be downtrodden in the samsara. But those who have cast off this burden, like the Shakyamuni Buddha, now the Prince Siddhartha has done, he will never be subject to birth anymore. When all existence are put away, when all notions are put an end, when all things are perfectly known, then no more will craving come back. So they're talking about the ending of the craving of one who has reached such state of enlightenment. So great was the joy that is pronounced by the gods when everybody heard that everybody discovered some kind of a sigh of relief and freedom. And so Buddha, having heard the gods proclaim this, and his own realization of increasement of wisdom was going in amazing fashion. He was just like going in a huge speed, high speed, and that he has so many realizations that came rushing into his mind. So in this way, Buddha spent 7 weeks. Each week there were many amazing encounters or realizations. And so for instance, the first 7 days passed, there came along while he was enlightened. He wasn't going to teach or anything like that. But there two merchants came to him, named Trapusha and Balika. These two, with 500 wagons of pulled by ox, carrying a lot of merchant, following the advice of Deva, they heard the pronouncement. So they came to the Buddha and offered him food and sweetened with honey and many other sweets, because Buddha hasn't eaten all these days. Each of the four kings of the four guardians, of the cardinal points, also brought him a bowl in which to take the food, and not wishing to offend any of them, he took the 4 bowls and transformed them into one. Very nice. So he straight away showed miracle. He said, "I can." He didn't say I can take one bowl, but he took all the 4 bowls, and all 4 bowls became one, and then he received alms in them. So that's usually you see this in the murals, drawings of this Buddha after getting enlightenment. The Trapusha and Balika, the 2 merchants with 500 wagons, they have got a lot of things they came to offer to the Buddha, but the Buddha didn't have any pots or cups or anything like that, and all of a sudden the 4 guardians comes and offer him the bowl. So that's the story of how the Buddha start receiving alms in the bowls offered by the 4 guardians. And then Buddha Buddha gave refuge to the merchants, to Trapusha and Balika. And of course, when Buddha gave refuge, there's only 2 refuges, Buddha and Dhamma. There's no Sangha. There's only 2 refuge objects because there's no Sangha. So it's only later on, maybe a couple of months later, then the Sangha will exist. So Buddha said, whatever wish you may have made when you made me this offering, it will grant it to you. So Buddha gave such amazing assurance. And then they bowed down before him, and they went their way rejoicing. After their departure, the Buddha sat down on the bank of river Niranjana, because Bodh Gaya or Vajrasana is only a couple of 100 meters from the river Niranjana. And he then ate his food, which the merchants has offered, but it is said the honey they gave him some little bit colic. Then the evil one, seeing the pain Buddha was showing, came to him and said that it is time for you to die. Time for you to die. Please don't live. This is not worth. And then the Buddha answered him, Mara, as long as my disciples have not become wise and quick understanding, as long as bhikshus and bhikshuni and lay disciples of either gender are not able to refute their adversaries according to Dhamma, as long as my moral teaching has not been spread far and wide among gods and men, so long will I not pass away, and I will remain. So he rejected the request for him to die. Can you imagine requesting someone to die? The Maras was just so bad. And then the Shakra, the king of the gods, brought some Myrobalan medicine from a tree, and he offered to the Buddha, and Buddha's colic was quickly cured. So it's important to know that even Buddha can still show that he is subjected to some kind of medical conditions, bodily ailments. And having remained under the Bodhi tree as long as Buddha was pleased, then he went to where lived the Naga king Michilinda. This is right near Bodh Gaya. There's a big water pond. So he went to there, and he wished to wishing to protect him from the sun and the rain. And the Naga wrapped his body 7 times around and blessed one, and spread his hood on top of the Buddha's head to protect him from the sun and rain and so on for 7 days. Buddha just sat there hooded, seven hooded snakes over his head and protected him from sun, as the Buddha was going to be very, very cold. After having remained with there as long as he pleased him, then Blessed One went to Bodhimanda. The Bodhimanda is the essence of the enlightenment. Enlightenment, and that's another location in Bodh Gaya. There he remained 7 days and seated on a grass mat, studying the 12 great links of interdependent origination, Patita Samutpada. And then that theory became so well fixed in his mind how he may speak the teachings later on as Udana. Udana means sayings. And so a lot of the teachings on Udana Varga are coming from during that occasion. And then, so in this way, the idea took possession in his mind. His doctrine, his teaching that he will give, is all about causes, and their effects have too much deep and interesting for man's intellect. Whoever knew what is the cause or what is the effect, they will learn to know, to choose the causes to produce the desired effect, instead of haphazardly trying to do whatever they like to produce result that they don't know what are the correct causes. And so he thought that he would not teach it right now because nobody will understand. And then Brahma and Indra came begging the Buddha, please, to teach the Dharma and not sort of refuse to teach. So Buddha reflected on who he should teach, who would be the first, because he taught these people, the true merchant, but traditionally that not regarded as actual formal teachings. So actual life story tells that these Trapusha and Balika definitely were Buddha's first benefactor, and they received teachings, and they don't mention about them attaining arhathood. Maybe that's the reason why we don't talk about that. But Buddha did give teaching to them and refuge to them too. Refuge. So Buddha gave refuge, the refuge in the Buddha and Dharmas, not Sangha then. Anyway, then he thought, most important people I should give teaching is those two great Indian teachers who taught him meditation, Arata Kalama and Rudraka. These Arata Kalama and Rudraka were really advanced meditators of the day in India. And of course, when Buddha went and learned with them, he just surpassed their knowledge and experience, and so they couldn't teach him anymore. And so when Buddha then wanted to go back to them in order to repay the kindness teach, then he observed through his meditative power, he realized both have died just a week ago, so they couldn't make it as his disciple. So he decided maybe I should go looking for my 5 friends. Remember, 5 friends, I don't know whether we cover them well or not, who have stayed with him to look after him, have abandoned him. Remember, he started eating and then they abandoned him. So it's not a long time ago, maybe a couple of months ago, no more than 2-3 months, and they left him and they disappeared. The Buddha wanted to go, and the 5 to wherever they were, because his close associate, he wanted to teach his teacher, he wanted to teach his common friends. And when he went, he realized, they are in Varanasi. In those days they call Banaras. Even these days they have Banaras. But when you see Banaras these days, people don't know what it is. But when people ask what is Varanasi, they know why it is, because the city is situated between Varuna and Asi, the two river, and that's not Ganges. Ganges is further east, So in the old days, the city wasn't as large as it is now to stretch as well as far as Ganges. Anyway, so Varanasi, and this particular place where Buddha was going to meet his friends is called Rishivadana. Rishivadana means deer park. So having spent the 7 weeks in Bodh Gaya and not teaching anything, and then realizing he's been requested to teach, so he will not refuse, so he will go to teach. And so then he now is going to go to Varanasi in search of his 5 friends, and so that he can give the teaching. And of course, everybody who saw the Buddha, they knew he was enlightened. But Buddha was going straight in search of his five friends. And so that will now be, we talk about how Buddha start teaching. So journeying from Bodh Gaya, of crossing the river Naranjana, then Buddha went to Benares or Varanasi to Deer Park, and where the five mendicants, Panchavarga, it's called. Panchavarga means a group of 5 friends, and they all have lived there, and they saw him coming, and they were still really rude towards him. He says, "Here comes the Gautama, the gluttonous one," you know. So they say, oh, they actually said they will not greet him or offer him any, courtesy or anything like that. If he could join, let him sit, but we won't do anything because we can't stand him. sounds like very ordinary. Anyway, as the Gautama Buddha came closer, he had this amazing, grand, and magnificent presence. They couldn't bear like that, so therefore completely transformed them. So they all got up involuntarily and offered their respect and courtesy, and they addressed him, asking him how was his meditation, and they never thought he was still enlightened. And then, of course, Buddha corrected them. I'm no longer Ayusmat, I'm Blessed One. So don't call me Ayusmat. Ayusmat is just like Mr., and the Blessed One is the Enlightened One. And then he gave the teachings, and when he started to impart the doctrine of the middle way, reason why he left, reason why I started eating was he was trying to avoid extremes, kind of mortification and extreme kind of pleasure are not the way to go, but adopt a middle way. So when he gave the teaching on the 4 Noble Truths, straight away the first monk, Kaudinya is the all-knower one. Kaudinya received arhathood straight away in the first sermon. Buddha asked Kaudinya, "Have you understood the doctrine?" And then Kaudinya replied, "Blessed One, I have thoroughly understood." On this account, he was called Kaudinya, the knower of all. Kunshi Kaudinya in Tibetan. And then Buddha elaborated on the 4 Noble Truths because Kaudinya was so intelligent, he understood, and as a result of that, the 4 others also attained arhathood. So all the 5 mendicants attain arhathood by listening to the Dharma Chakra Parvartana Sutra, which is the setting the wheel of Dharma in motion sutra, which is subject is the 4 Noble Truths and 8-fold path. So most people actually become very, very enlightened, intellectually at least enlightened. Wow. And that time when people hear Buddha, not only the 5 got all completely converted, but they all became arhat. And so this meant that now the enlightening teaching of the Buddha was now affecting so many people. And then when Buddha went down to the river Ganges to wash or something like that, and then he met there a very wealthy merchant called Yasha, and Yasha also, as soon as he saw the Buddha, he could see something, and when he heard the Buddha, and he too become his lay disciple Upasaka, and then they realized their masters, the Yasha, has disappeared. All the friends and children came looking for, but they thought he's been killed or hijacked or something. Then they discovered that Yasha has met the Buddha and got highly realized. And then, of course, when people get to know the Buddha, and when Yasha returned home. Then Buddha went to his house, and having received food and things like that from his home, Buddha gave teachings. Now Yasha and his 4 other friends, Kopurna, Vimala, Gawampati, and Subahu, these 4. So another group of 5 people, another group of 5 people all became bhikkhus. They all took ordinations, asked the Buddhas to admit them into the order. So now we're talking about how the Buddha started his teaching and therefore developed followers, and these followers were not just learning to read or write or something like that. As soon as they heard the teaching, they got arhatship. Amazing, that's what the power of the Buddha. They didn't have to hear much; they just have to come to his presence, his divine presence, and they all. So at that time, Buddha had 10 arhats, and the Buddha himself as the enlightened one. So then 50 families of Benares, on hearing these conversions, they all entered the order, and then they become 60 arhats, so just this arhats after arhats. And so then slowly the Buddha traveled from Benares towards Bodh Gaya. Benares is a little bit up northwest, and so then he came to know that it's time for him to meet more people, because Magadha kingdom is where he got enlightened, so he wanted to go in that region, and there, of course, the many people were more than ready to receive the Buddha's teaching, and after the Buddha has, converted many people, and many of them become become bhikkhus, and also arhats, and then, of course, some people, because Magadha was a very big business center type of thing, and many people come from all over India, and some people, one rich Brahmin from Kapilavastu also came, and then they knew of the Siddhartha had enlightened, but after he was there, he also he and his wife received teaching from Buddha, and he wanted to visit. This is their prince who got enlightened, and so Buddha taught in the Uruvela village 2 girls called Nanda and Nalabanda. And then he gave teachings to many people in Uruvela Kashyapa and Gaya Kashyapa and so on, and all the 3 Kashyapas all received Buddha's teaching. Finally, the Kashyapas became very, very good disciples of Buddha, and so then because they were all subject of King Bimbisara. King Bimbisara is the king of Magadha, and King Bimbisara, being the king of Magadha, have heard of the enlightenment of the Shakya prince in his kingdom, and went to Banaras and taught, and now he heard that he's returned back in his kingdom back. And so then the king had made 5 wishes. King had made 5 wishes in his life because he was naturally spiritually gifted. The 5 wishes the king had made are that a Buddha might appear during my reign. So that's one thing came true. That he might see him. That's the second wish. That he might learn the truth from him. Yeah, that's the third one. And some people see Buddha, but they don't learn nothing, so it's quite different. Seeing him is second wish, and existence Buddha was first wish, and learning from him was the third wish. Fourth was that he might understand the meaning of the teachings. Fifth one was that he might follow the commandment himself. So King Bimbisara, on having heard the Buddha's existence, he realized, now my wishes are going to be found. So he sent a messenger to the Buddha to salute him, and then offer him and Buddha, his disciples, all the royal hospitality in the capital Rajagriha. Rajagriha was one of the 6 main cities of ancient India. Rajagriha means royal kingdom. And so the Blessed One accepted the invitation, went to Rajagriha, took up the abode with his 1,000 disciples in the place called Venuvana. Venuvana means bamboo grove. Bamboo grove is a very famous place where Buddha gave many teachings. While it is not the first place where Buddha gave teaching, but it's a place where Buddha gave many teachings. Not as many more than he gave in Deer Park. There, the great Kashyapa, the Kashyapa, who would become Buddha's main successor, he also met the Buddha then. So Kashyapa was more senior than Shariputra and Moggallana Buddha. Shariputra and Moggallana Buddha hasn't met the Buddha yet, but they're going to coming soon. So here onwards, we're talking about who met the Buddha when, and what were there before, and how their life was changed. So Kashyapa was quite an elder, wise man himself. But when he met the Buddha, of course, he was really, he didn't know what he thought was important. He realized all what he knew was nothing in comparison to what the Buddha was teaching. But people always thought Kashyapa was so wise, and they always thought he was also a Buddha. They never thought he was a Buddha's disciple. And in the end, of course, Kashyapa had a lot of knowledge, but Kashyapa was not enlightened, But Kashyapa can show miracles, and Buddha empowered Kashyapa to show miracles, and without him being the one who showed miracles. And then, because when he showed miracles, it's Buddha's disciples showing the miracles. And so when people heard Kashyapa could show so many miracles, and then the respect and honor to the Buddha grew even more, much more than before. So in this way, Buddha gave teaching to the king Bimbisara, and people on 5 skandhas, 5 aggregates, and concept of aggregates, concept of volition, consciousness, and mental volition, and so on. And then the king Bimbisara and a great multitude of Brahmins and householders were all converted into Buddhism. Then king invited the Buddha again into the city, and when he came there, he and his disciples stopped in Yashitvana. Yashitvana is a small village, and king came to see him there. After having heard the Buddha preach, he invited him to feast tomorrow. When the feast was over, king poured water over the Blessed One's hands, said, I give, Kalanta Vinasha bamboo grove to the Blessed One. So he offered the bamboo grove to the Buddha. You have such a big follower, your teachings are magnificent, so I came to offer you, because Buddha wouldn't live in houses on the palace, so always live under trees, and so he deliberately offered his Venuvana. Venuvana means bamboo grove, to the Buddha. The Buddha, of course, really accepted, and this was the first vihara of permanent Buddhist residence for the Buddhist order. We must know the history. That's why when you go to Rajgiri, you got to not just go where the Buddha taught the Heart Sutra, but the Heart Sutra was taught later. But first Buddha was given this Venuvana, just next to adjacent to the main city Rajgriha itself. So everybody who went to listen to the teachings of the Buddha in Venuvana, they all went home blissed out, and so even birds and snakes and Lord wide, they all would sit still and stop doing what they normally do, and they also would listen to the teaching. And so when this kind of transformation took place, king, to show his gratitude, the bamboo grove became not only a abode for the Buddha and his disciples, but all the birds and wildlife also deliberately came to there. Now it is not far from there is Nalanda. So Nalanda is the birthplace of Shariputra, and so Shariputra and his friend Moggallana Putra were very sons of very wealthy family. They were both very learned in various Indian religious thoughts and ideas and metaphysics. And finally, they didn't know the Buddha was around, but they were always searching for truths, And one of the Buddha's disciples, called Aswajit, one of the 5 mendicants who attend Arhatship, he was going on alms round in the town, And then there Shariputra saw him. When Shariputra, Aswajit, he thought that was the Buddha. So peaceful, so magnificent, so amazing holy presence. And then he asked him what's his name, what he knew, what is the religion, what is spiritual belief, and so on and so forth. And then it is that time, and then what we call Aswajit, Aswajit was begging food and struck by his appearance. Then Shariputra asked him concerning himself, what is your way, what do you know, who you are? And then Aswajit replied that he was a neophyte. He was a novice himself, could not expound the doctrine all, but he repeat the verse, Yedharma hetu prabhava hetun tikshan tathagato haya vadatta tikshan sayo nirodha evam vadi mahashramana, which means all phenomena arose from causes. The cause of those phenomena were taught by the great ascetic, and that ascetic has also taught how to uncause those causes. So this was enough for Shariputra to see the truth of the Buddha's doctrine. He just nearly got arhat. And then he said, can he become his disciples? Then Asvajit said, look, I will take you to my master. My master is the enlightened one. He said, you have a master? Do you need a master? Of course, I'm just a disciple of my master. And then Asvajit took to the Buddha, took a Shariputra to the Buddha. Of course, this time Shariputra has already told his friend Myrobalan as well, so they both were so delighted. And after so many years of searching, seeking, they couldn't find any decent teachings. And then they both went to see the Buddha, and when then they were both converted in Myrobalan, in Bamboo Grove. So Bamboo Grove is very historical. There, both of them became arhathood, when he heard the verse, both they were so intelligent. They both, when they heard the verse, they can understand the law of cause and effect. Not only that, both of them have 250 followers each. All of them also became disciple of Buddha. So in this way, and later on, Shariputra's uncle, couple of days later, Shariputra's uncle called Kostila also came to the Bamboo Grove and was converted by hearing the very teachings. So in this way, Shariputra and Myrobalan are very well-known disciples of Buddha, what they call model pair of the disciple of the Buddha. But unfortunately, they predeceased the Buddha. But during the Buddha's ministry, which is fairly early, this is only the year, same year, but Buddha got enlightened. So that is, they had their whole life practicing Dharma. Shariputra was unsurpassable, his wit and wisdom, and Myrobalan was in his magical power. So they were the two really exemplary disciples of the Buddha. So in this way, Buddha's teaching of the Dharma now took in great speed, and everyone who heard, even the Buddha's disciple, was starting to see the truth. And then they continue and they attain arhatship. So they're just becoming arhat and arhat bhikkhus and bhikkhus, arhat bhikkhus. Every bhikkhu become arhat. Every layman become bhikkhu. Bhikkhu become arhat. So you can imagine how whole India was filled by these many disciples of the Buddha. So Buddha's kindness and wisdom and compassion touch many people's lives. So next week onwards, we will look at more specifically such individuals in the life of Buddha to whom the kind of conversation Buddha had, and how he taught them, and how he converted them, and how they all attain arhathood, and so on. So with this, we will conclude here now, and I'll catch you up later in the next session. Thank you very much, everyone.